I'm a little bit under the weather this week, listeners. I picked up some tonsillitis. How about that? Normally it's Phil who's sort of coughing and spluttering on the podcast.
There's no spluttering.
But either way, listeners, we're both such pros. We turn up anyway. But that's my excuse for not having a comedy intro for David Brent Life on the Road.
Yeah.
So therefore, Phil, what have you got?
Hey, it's the Life on the Road, and it's a song and a tour about David Brent.
Thanks, Phil. Right. Listeners, we went to see Ricky Gervais' new film, crucially, without Stephen Merchant this time. David Brent, or Ricky Gervais. I keep mixing up the names. I kept calling this film Ricky Gervais, in fact.
It kind of is Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, maybe they should have called it that.
They're kind of synonymous, I think.
He found fame with The Office, and he's been on a tour of various different bits and pieces of Hollywood, basically making a fool of himself in some ways. Lastly, with Special Correspondence, was it on Netflix?
Yeah, that was his latest film, I think, with Eric Bana.
And you didn't like that at all?
I wasn't a fan of that one. So I went into this film with a little bit of...
trepidation. I think it's fair to say everyone who enjoyed The Office is really hoping that this is his comeback, basically. The Office was fun and it was successful for a reason. So has he managed to capture it again? That's the question.
That is the big question. Do we reveal what we think before the clip, or...?
No, let's keep an air of mystery, Phil. We've given it away the last few times. I think let's keep it. So we got a clip for you, and do you want to give your disclaimer for this clip, Phil?
So we're not going to introduce this clip. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's David Brent chatting. These views that he expresses are not the Super Bailey Brews.
No, nor do we endorse the things that he says.
Exactly.
David Brent for you, eh? Here we go.
I've been out with all sorts of girls. Rich girls, poor girls, white girls, thin girls, fat girls. I went out with a very big lady, lovely, bubbly, beautiful eyes. All my mates were like, "Oh, Brent, if she lost weight, she'd be an absolute stunner." And she did lose weight, and she wasn't a stunner, which was very disappointing. A surprise to everyone. I think she left it a bit late in life and lost it way too quickly, so she was left with that sort of wattle thing. And she wasn't bubbly anymore, a bit grumpy, always hungry.
Yeah, so, as we said, not the views of the Super Bailey Bros. So, Phil, we got David Brent back working as a sales rep for, isn't it a feminine hygiene products company?
It's sort of all toiletry requirements.
Yeah, and he's got a new cadre of, I don't even know that's a word, let alone the right word for that.
Sounds like it's a thing. Carry on.
Of other office workers, including Tom Bennett, most recently in Love and Friendship, and the lovable idiot in that film, back again as a lovable idiot in this film. And he doesn't love being a sales rep. He wants to take his band out on tour, and we discover how that band got formed and what is in store for them on the road. What do you think?
I don't know, really. I feel like I should put a disclaimer about myself here. The Office, I was a fan of. I was much more a fan of the American Office, actually.
Oh, yeah?
That did it for me much more than the sort of super cringy British original. And so I also have this sort of weird feelings about Ricky Gervais and his persona outside of his films. When we were talking about Shia LaBeouf and like all the stuff going around him when you think about his films.
Sometimes the cult of celebrity catches up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so I do have a kind of slightly affected view of Ricky Gervais and his films. And so I'm probably not necessarily as keen to like it as some other people might be. I feel like it was exactly what I expected, but not necessarily what I hoped it would be.
Yeah, fair enough. We spent almost all our time with David Brent, and I couldn't believe that Tom Bennett was barely in the film.
Which one was Tom Bennett?
This is his sort of almost David Brent Mark II, who's in The Office, who also wears the suits and laughs at all his gags. That is Tom Bennett. And they worked quite well together, but Tom Bennett himself is a fantastic comedic talent, actually. In Love and Friendship, he was scene stealing, so much so that the director, Whit Stillman, put him in the film more and more and more by his own admission. And I thought it was weird that they went the other way with this, and quite quickly, Tom Bennett is more or less disposed of. And then David Brent, it's just David Brent the entire time.
It is literally David Brent, and I think in some ways that's great. If you're a big fan of David Brent, you're probably going to love it. But if you found him a bit tiring, or you even in The Office you found him a little bit too much to handle at times, this is a long movie. It feels long, and
it really does.
It's a lot of time cringing, basically.
I spent a lot of the time with my head in my hands. I'm like that with The Office. It was a funny thing because about 10 minutes into watching it, I reminded myself, oh yeah, there are things in The Office I don't like to watch. it's too painful for me. And it's really funny because some of the people who I've seen commenting on this movie have said, oh, we all know a David Brent. We all know someone who's like this. And I think, yeah, me. It's me. I'm like this. Is that how you feel or not?
No.
Come on, but I thought that's why the comedy's there in the first place. It's that although David Brent is the absolute extreme of some just awful social habits, the reason it's painful is that we all kind of have some conception of what it's like to stand in his shoes for any one of those moments where you've made a comment that actually you wish you hadn't made, or you've really tried to fit in and it hasn't worked out.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Everyone's got those moments where they've tried to make a joke and it just fell flat and they're on the wrong side of the line, basically.
Yeah.
But I actually think this film, one of the key problems with it is the fact that David Brent isn't relatable anymore. You don't really relate to him. He's in a completely unique circumstance because he's on a tour with his band. He's trying to make it big as a pop star. And I can't relate to that. I don't know about you, Laurie. Maybe you could, actually.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Phil, because, well, I mean, that's kind of, listen, we won't spoil a story such as there is. I think you can guess almost every beat of this movie before you turn up. But I can relate to some parts of it, yeah. Attempting to make something happen, like a podcast, for example, Phil.
Yeah, okay.
Is something that some people do try, other people don't try it. And, there's a bit of pathos in there. Honestly, I thought the sort of emotional element of the film was quite badly done in places. It just felt shoved in there as if Ricky Gervais just sort of expects you to believe it, whereas I don't think it was earned in the movie at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, earning it. I think you know where it's going, but I don't feel like the acts move into one another. It just sort of moves along because it needs to, because it's a movie. It's going to move into its final act and things start wrapping up.
And did you find it funny or not?
There was what I thought that clip slightly made me cringe, but also was quite funny. And that's kind of more reminiscent of the humour in The Office.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of the humour, I thought it was drawn out longer than I was used to, I think, and longer than I expected. The jokes kind of kept on playing and the awkwardness lasted a lot longer. And so I didn't really find myself laughing. Actually, quite a lot of the film, I was associating myself with the audience that David Brent has in the film.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the office workers and the people around him literally cringing and sort of wincing at what he's saying. That's how I felt. And it was quite weird because the film, I felt, was constantly telling you how awful David Brent was, but yet you're meant to be finding him funny. And I think having David Brent away from the office environment and in a different scenario than the TV show, I think really hurts how much humour you can get out of his character. Because, not to go into TV land here, but The Office, I think, is entirely about the fact that he's the boss and you can't escape him and you have to put up with his awful jokes and the fact that he's sort of just cringeworthy.
And the fact that he thinks he's entitled to make him because he's the boss.
Yeah, there's a whole power structure to his character. And when he's not in that structure, his character just feels a bit lost. It doesn't really make sense because you don't really believe that anyone would put up with him. You don't really believe that he would get a job. You don't really believe that HR would say, oh, don't worry about it this time, you can have another go. I think you'd just be fired really quickly, and I don't think you'd get hired. And so the whole environment, the world that this film is making and
falls apart at the seams.
It doesn't work for me. I couldn't really connect to it. Yeah, there was something missing here.
No, I agree. And quite apart from that, I think you need the foils of people like Tim and Gareth and Dawn and all the other guys in the office to take some of the heat off the cringing of David Brent's character. You need some other light-hearted comedy.
Like, David Brent's not a likeable character.
No, and that's what annoyed me about the emotional side of it, because they kind of want you to say, oh, go on.
They force him into that position, don't they?
Which, I don't think people do. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The other big kind of fault I have with the film is, and this is the thing about all the stuff that I know about Ricky Gervais. I know that he used to be a pop star in real life.
He did.
When he was 20, he was in a pop band and he tried to make a career.
He was the lead singer, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the band, but I can't help but think this is kind of Ricky Gervais living out his sort of dream of performing songs.
Well, I mean, he's going on tour, isn't he? And this film is kind of a promotion as well for CDs and tickets.
And doesn't that make you cringe?
Yeah, I'm not going to that tour. I wouldn't. I mean, it's not like Spinal Tap, for example.
And interestingly,
you would go and see them play those songs because they were just funny. They weren't offensive. They were funny.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that film because I've read in sort of reading around this film that is Ricky Gervais's like favorite comedy movie. And you can so clearly he wants to hit that height, but he doesn't necessarily even understand why Spinal Tap works and what's going on there. And the music itself isn't particularly. I don't think it's particularly funny. and it's not good enough. You kind of, if you're going to do comedy songs and sort of satire and things like that, you kind of need to get it so close that it almost could be, but it's not, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. And, it interested me anyway. As soon as the drummer turns up, do you recognise him?
I do recognise him, but I can't place where.
Razorlight.
Ah, okay.
And he also had a solo project called I Am Arrows, where he did a song that goes, oh, look down, everybody loves you. Know that one?
Rings a bell.
Why won't anybody fly this plane? Whoa. I think I did well there. I should be on stage. This is my thing. I am David Brent.
Oh, gosh.
Not really, that's a joke. But yeah, I found that distracting because I recognised him, and it immediately, not that it should really matter that much in a film like this, right? But it did just jar with me, and it revealed to me that this is a production. So I thought the film felt a bit thin. It was okay. Not that funny. But personally, I still prefer it to all the other stuff I've seen Ricky Gervais in.
I almost think Special Correspondence was better.
No, really?
And I can't believe I'm saying that, because
no,
I really didn't like that film.
It, yeah.
But Special Correspondence, it felt like he was more aware of what his movie was. Whereas this film, I can't get my head around the decisions Ricky Gervais has done, because he's written it and directed it. And I just always come back to this thing that I feel Ricky Gervais is indulging himself. It's all projects that he wants to do and little things that he wants to pursue.
What would your grade be?
Well, one last final thought before I give the grade. I actually think if you look at the Christmas special of The Office, when he's no longer working in the office, I think this film is basically a rehash of that.
And that one was much better.
And that works so much better.
But not because of David Brent.
It just works better. And David Brent, in his own character, basically following a similar sort of arc and a similar sort of resolution.
Yeah, it was.
And actually, I think the Christmas special does it better.
I kind of feel like it might be a promo for his tour, and his CDs.
I think it's an acceptable film in the sense that it is what it is, and it does meet the kind of expectations, but I hoped it would have been better, so I'm going to give it a C. Nice one.
I think I'd do the same, but I'd give it a C+.
Okay.
No, actually, you know what? I'm going to go back on that. I'm going to give it a B-, man, because
whoa.
I think it's a lot better than some of the things I've seen. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not brilliantly made, but I knew what I was getting myself into. It's not really a bonus, but my final thing to say, man, is that I've talked about this before. I think the confessional style of this has got to go.
Do you not think it works?
From any production. What's that TV show that does it? The American Office, obviously. But there are loads of TV
Parks
shows.
and Rec, Modern Family.
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing these little candid interviews with the cast members, and I can't stand it anymore. Like, it just bugs me. It's not real. Stop it, you're not real.
Yeah, it slightly breaks the reality, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a comedy, isn't it? Why are you guys being so serious about a comedy film, yeah? Come on.
Why are you?
It's just a laugh.
If it making you laugh, what's the problem?
Let's move on.